Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. We are Guardian Systems, and we are here to present to you our mobile application that we've been working on, which is titled Sixth Sense. Now, before I go into that, I'm just going to introduce my team. We have Mr. Ed Delere, this is our product sponsor. But sorry, before I go there, actually, the contents of the presentation that we're going to go through, I'll go through the team structure and dynamics, then we'll go through problem statement and proposed solutions, our use of metaphors, the business plan, marketing and revenue generation, Kickstarter campaign, the easy backlog, and finally the demonstration of our app. Now, in terms of our team structure, our product sponsor is Mr. Ed Delere, and I am the product owner. Our team lead, Josh Brennan, our lead technical development database administrator, Tom Schoen, our lead software tester, Michelle or Mitch, our lead analyst, Sivue, and our lead user experience designer, Vinia. Even though I've described those titles for these team members, I just want to make it clear that with this Agile methodology that we're using, we don't actually have such set solid roles. Those are just the strengths of each of our members. But we did a lot of interaction and interconnectedness in terms of what we're doing. Now, our group is quite dynamic, as you can see based on this. This is basically a personality type indication from the Myers-Briggs personality type test. So it looks like basically how people prefer to focus their attention, extroversion or introversion, how they prefer to take information, which is sensing or intuition, how people prefer to make decisions, thinking or feeling, and how people deal with the outer world, which is judging and perceiving. So we have quite a good mix of different personalities. We've got a rough balance between extroverts and introverts. And we also used this with the Myers-Briggs analysis to also better allocate the different roles to each of our team members. Now, going into the actual problem that we're faced with in our project that we're presenting to you today. This is our problem statement summed up in a nutshell. It's quite detailed, as you will see in our documents. So we've got here our domain document, the business plan, our sprint deliverables, our sprint retrospectives, and our user manual. These are basically the more detailed versions of this lecture that we're going through. So our problem statement, in a nutshell, is there's no reliable and mobile way to test for telepathy between two or more people. The actual problems that we were addressing in this problem statement, after further analysis of our problem statement, were firstly the experimental effect. That basically means that when the researchers are taking out these telepathy tests, there's a tendency to influence the results of the experimenter. So we're trying to avoid that by bringing mobile into it. We've got incorrect data collection, which is mainly because of bias in terms of people actually involved in these experiments. We've got data collection on a broad scale, a lack of data collection on a broad scale actually. So what we're trying to do is provide a mobile application which can be used on a global scale. That will be our final product. That's what we're aiming for to address that problem. And there's no fun way to get people to participate in telepathy tests. I'll look at the solution straight after this just so that you can go on with these problems. And then finally, there's a possibility of cheating in the current telepathy tests that are carried out. So the proposed solutions to address those problems that I just mentioned to you. The first one there is the provision of an interactive mobile telepathy testing application between at least two people. So that addresses mainly the problem of data collection on a broad scale. So we're saying at least two people, but because it's on a mobile application, we're trying to launch it into the Android platform where anyone can access it all over the world, just so that we can get more participants in telepathy testing. Then we've also got gamification of the application. That mainly addresses the issue of there's no fun way of getting people involved in telepathy testing. It's quite a strict discipline that's, where all these tests are being taken place. So what we're trying to do is just make it a fun way, get people involved, try to get more people. And we have testing using the mobile application in an uncontrolled environment, which will reduce the chance of the experimental effect, which I mentioned in those problems, which will also reduce the problems of bias, which come up in normal traditional telepathy tests. Now, we made use of metaphors in the whole project, as I'm sure you're not familiar with. And in these metaphors, a metaphor matrix, we show the relationship between various metaphors and attributes from the problem statement was derived. And also, we have this basically provides the team with a tool that helps in abstraction and modeling, because metaphors are just an easier way of explaining our problem and exploring our problem without actually using the geek speak of the telepathy discipline or the parapsychology discipline, just so that we get an easier way of understanding the problem at hand. And a ranking out of 5 was given to show the importance of each metaphor, as you will see in the next slide on our metaphor matrix. So on the y-axis is all the attributes which we derived from our problem statement. Like I said before, the detailed problem statement you will find in the domain document, but those are basically the attributes that we derived. The actual metaphors are there along the x-axis at the top. So we came up with 4 metaphors. How we came up with these was basically through brainstorming sessions. We'll sit down, we'll try to actually look at the crux of the matter and try to identify what exactly it is we're trying to work towards. And we came up with the 4 metaphors there. The first one is players. So how we came up with players is that since we're trying to gamify it, we want to have players. In actual telepathy testing or telepathy experiments, we have participants. But because we're trying to give an easier way of understanding it, we use the word players, just to reflect that you've got people that are willingly participating in these experiments. The next is communication. Communication is just putting across that for you to have a valid or a useful telepathy test, there has to be some sort of interaction between the participants or the players, using our metaphors. The game is basically the total experiment in this case, because we're trying to gamify it. We're trying to get these participants interacting using a mobile game. And then data collecting. Data collecting is actually, if you can say, the core purpose of this project that we're working on. Because at the end of the day, we don't just want to develop a game where people can have fun, but we want to develop a game which will then provide the parapsychology discipline, which is basically the discipline that focuses on telepathy testing and experimenting with usable information. So they'll be able to access the number of people that have taken part in telepathy testing, the results that have come from those telepathy tests. But of course, I'll go through the actual application at a later stage. After that, we came up with 4 key objects. So the 4 key objects are basically a way of describing each of those metaphors. We made use of all our 4 metaphors because we thought that they were quite important in the actual problem. So we've got 4 key objects that are defining each metaphor. And the way these objects interact guides the project team in understanding the various elements of the system and how they actually work together. Now, after the 4 key objects, we came up with our Bayesian triad diagram, or the Bayesian triangles. This it's all building up from the metaphors, the metaphor matrix, the 4 key objects, to give us a holistic view of our system. So this is kind of giving us a holistic view of our system. Before I go into explaining that, I would just like to state that at first our application was called the guessing game. So we use the word guess quite a lot. And then recently, after talking to a project sponsor, Mr. Agile, we actually came up with a new name, which is Symphonies, which I presented to you today. Mainly because, yes, guessing is what's happening when you're telepathy testing, but then that kind of, it removes the focus from the actual core. Because telepathy testing is not just pure guessing. You're trying to identify if there is a link between 2 human beings telepathically, which is why we say it's sixth sense, which is a large number of people call telepathy the unknown sixth sense, which is where we got the name from. So as you can see from this Bayesian triad diagram, all our metaphors are now coming up. We've got the games, we've got our participants, and we've got different elements of the system, a mobile platform. So for example, we've got a game, and then we know that there's some guessing that's happening in this telepathy testing. So guessing is a game. Telepathy test is a guessing game. The telepathy test is a guessing game between participants. And the telepathy test is a guessing game between participants on a mobile platform, which is not just giving us now the holistic view of what we're working towards in the project. So sixth sense, like I mentioned before, was previously known as the guessing game, but we can generally describe it as an interactive mobile application that is designed to test an individual's ability to telepathically determine what other people are thinking by making use of Xena cards. We'll go into more detail later into these senior parts and what exactly are they throughout our presentation. So I'll now leave the floor to Vinia, who will take you through the business plan.
Thank you for that. Good morning. I'm going to take you through the business plan, and then Sylvia will come and take you through the Kickstarter. Our vision is to discover through the use of system if telepathic abilities exist and under what conditions people are most receptive to telepathic messages. And our mission is to collect large-scale, accurate information about telepathy to distinguish between fact and fiction in the field of parapsychology. And then our customer segments have gamers, which are people who are going to use the product for entertainment purposes. And this is because of the fact that it's going to be a fun and interactive way to test telepathy. So it can be done between friends or even random users. And then our other users are researchers, and these are individuals who intend to use the application for telepathic exploration. I'll take you through our SWOT analysis, which are the strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats of our product. Our strengths are that the system can be broadened in terms of the functionalities if need be. Secondly, the application is in form of a game, which makes it entertaining for users. Thirdly, the application is easy and is also simple to use. Our weaknesses is that the developers of the application are limited to using just MIT App Inventor. The game is internet dependent, which may limit the number of potential participants, especially in developing countries. And also that the system does not completely eliminate the possibility of cheating. Our opportunities are that the application may become a market leader as there are no similar products at the moment. Secondly, the application can be used in a controlled environment in order to conduct supervised experiments. Thirdly, there is a possibility of new and better versions of MIT App Inventor to be released. And our threats are that participants may intentionally cheat in these games. There is a possibility of the web database crashing. Thirdly, competitors may copy the design of our application. And then there is a possibility of getting a poor download rate from the potential participants. And then the next thing I'm going to take you through is our marketing strategy, which in our case we use public relations, where we use word of mouth. And we also use social media, which Michelle is going to show you later, because in our case we used Facebook and Twitter. The second thing we did was advertising, where we also use social media and posters and flyers. We have a copy here of our flyers and posters. I'm just going to give you. And the third marketing strategy was personal selling, where we actually approach the potential participants and explain the system to them. For our revenue generation, we're planning to sell the data for data mining purposes and use cost per install, where another application pays per install that they get, so that the application will appear as a pop-up, prompting the user to go and look at the other application. Sylvia will now take you through the Kickstarter campaign.
Ladies and gentlemen, you've heard about the application. So now I'll just take you through the Kickstarter campaign. Basically, Kickstarter is a platform where people can get funding from if they have creative ideas or innovative ideas. So we've made an account on Kickstarter. We want to get funding from the crowd, so we're trying to get people to pledge funds for our campaign. As we made a prototype. So we'll just play the video for you now that we made on the Kickstarter.
Have you ever wondered if you were able to guess what your friends were thinking? Whether you were psychic or whether other people were psychic? Hello there. Hey, I was about to call you first. Hey, I was about to ask you to wear those pants. Yeah, I'm sure you were. Ladies and gentlemen, we've all experienced these moments in our daily lives. Are they just mere coincidences? quantum systems have developed a game to test your ability to guess what other people are thinking.
Ladies and gentlemen, introducing Sixth Sense. Sixth Sense.
An interactive mobile game is test telepathy.
Sixth Sense is a fun way of getting people involved in telepathy testing.
Everyone is going mobile. Guess what? Telepathy. Just win.
Our first move, Sixth Sense, is a mobile platform where anyone can access it.
According to our cost estimations, we need approximately 480,000 rands to achieve this. Help us by funding our initiative. This is going to be huge. Be part of it.
That was good, yeah.
Okay, so the idea behind the video is that we want to take this application to a bigger audience and to a larger scale. So we're faced with a number of challenges, which were cost and the time. We didn't have enough time to develop the prototype. We didn't have the funds enough to use the proper environment platform, which would allow us to incorporate other functionalities. But the MIT app builder that we used was good enough for us to make it a useful and working prototype in the short space of time that we were given. Another challenge is that we didn't have enough knowledge of the development tool as well. So if we can get enough knowledge of the tool, and as well as if we can get trained on the tool, that's why we developed this marketing campaign in order to get funds to move the project to a larger scale. Just a breakdown of the costs that we're going to spend on taking the project to a larger scale. We used a tool developed by Crew, which is an estimation tool for costs of applications. Most of these costs are mainly labor, the amount of time that will be spent working on those aspects. So when developing an Android app, we estimated that it would cost us around $8,000. If we're trying to develop a social media tool, it would cost us around $4,000 US. In order to create authentication in the app, it would cost us about $3,000 to develop, and then to allow people to download the app from Google Play for free, it would cost us $3,000 as well. In terms of connecting to websites, that would cost us around $5,000, and allowing the building stocks design on the interface of the application would cost us about $7,000. If we want to make the app look pretty and all that, on top of the pretty that we have at the moment. And in terms of also incorporating app icons, it would cost us $5,000. The estimated cost, as Kuda mentioned in the video, would be around $480,000. So the reason why we used the US dollars there was that the rand is currently not stable, so we were like, we can't use the South African rands because we don't really know much of the cost is. So we're pleading with you guys, just support our initiative, help us get this application to the next level. Who knows, we could be billionaires as well like us. Yes. Our bank accounts are on the flyer. If you want to donate, if you want to pledge, you can pledge on the flyer. I'll now hand over to Rich for the easy backlog.
Good afternoon. I'll be going through the easy backlog. So easy backlog is a backlog management tool that we use to keep track of our user stories and all the different sprints that we had. So in easy backlog, it allows you to have different themes so that your work is in a certain order. So we had 5 different themes. We had the initiation theme, we had the gameplay theme, we have the post-gameplay theme, the professional relations theme, and then the final editions theme, which we added after we talked to a sponsor and then we decided to change the name of our application. So if we go back to the initiation theme, we can see that each theme had different user stories. For example, in the initiation theme, as a user, I want to be in contact with one other participant. So to have those aspects that you look at when you start to play, before you even start to play the game, but the first important aspects you have when you initiate the game. And then, if we look at the different sprints, for example, in sprint 1, we tackle the user stories differently according to whether they took up more of our time or less of our time. So for example, in sprint 1, we looked at aspects in the initiation theme and then in the gameplay theme. And then we can also look at the stats. In our statistics, we had our burn down chart. A burn down chart shows the work done versus the time you had left. So if we look at that, we can see that the actual is over the trend, which shows that we were a bit behind time. And then if you look at the burnout chart shows what you're currently doing. So the red shows what we actually did, and then the blue shows what we could have done. But we can also see that the points are decreasing on the burnout chart, and then this also shows that as we moved along the different sprints, we decided to decrease some of the points because we realized that we had certain issues when we were going through our system. And then if we look at the velocity, we had anticipated that the velocity per day would be 1, but then we realized that it ended up being 0.6. And some of the problems that we had that caused this were that we had problems with error checking and testing because of Wi-Fi issues. So without testing the function or the different user story, you couldn't accept it. So we had to wait until we had enough connection to test it and then accept it. The velocity of completed sprints also shows the different points for each of the velocities, for each of the different sprints. And we can see that in sprint 3, that's when we had most of the velocities because we had a lot of user stories that we tackled in that sprint. I'll also be going through the testing. We looked at functional testing and non-functional testing. In terms of functional testing, we looked at black box testing and white box testing. And then in terms of non-functional testing, we looked at usability testing. With usability testing, we looked at aspects such as learnability, if the user is able to understand the game. And then with efficiency, if the user is able to navigate through the different screens in the game. And then with memorability, if let's say the user plays the game today, if I ask them to play tomorrow, will they be able to move through the screens without me giving them any help? And then satisfaction, if they're happy with playing the game. We also looked at documentation or static review, where we went through our domain document and our user manual to make sure that there are no missing requirements and we don't have any problems and that everything correlates with what we ended up putting in our application. We also looked at performance testing to see if our application can withstand a workload that is above the normal one. For example, having a lot of players using the game at once. And then I can go through the test cases. So as you can see, we had test cases for each week. In terms of sprint 1, we looked at all the different test cases, and then we had a test case number for each test case so that each week we can keep track of what the test case number was so that if it had an error, we can fix it. If you scroll down to the bottom, we had a key. So the key shows a different color code for each result of the test. So red showed that there was an error. The blue showed that the function or the aspect was still in progress. So part of it was correct, but it wasn't fully built, so we couldn't test all of it. And then pass showed that there was no error. And then screen not available shows that the functionality was not built into the aspect. If we go on to 7 October, we can see that we started having errors, and then we also still had purple screens to show that some of the screens were still not available. We continued doing this for all the other weeks, changing the errors according to what we had in that week, and keeping track of this. And then finally, if we look at on the 29th of October, which was our last testing we did, all of it was black to show that we didn't have any more issues and that all of the tests had passed. And then we also had usability testing. In terms of usability testing, the key had recommendation and pass. Recommendation, the red, showed that when we did the usability testing, the users gave us suggestions or things they thought would have added or removed from the application. And then pass showed that they understood the application, they were able to use it easily. I will now hand over the floor to Joshua and he will go through the minimum viable product.
Okay, so we have the minimal viable product. In this project, it was a mobile application that allows a card to be sent between two people, and the idea is that the receiver will attempt to use their telepathic ability to determine which card was sent to them. I'm going to quickly take you through our Sprint 1 application just to show you how we first used the TinyWebDB. Okay, so the Sprint 1 was the first, as I said, the minimal viable product. So it's the most basic of all our sprints and iterations. And basically how it works is that it would be on one phone and you would have to just pass it between two people. But it was our first introduction to how to set up a tiny web database and how to use that, how the data was passed between cell phones and the online database. So as the sender, I would choose sender, and then I get presented with the 5 Xena cards if I made a selection. So now what would happen there in the background, it would actually update the tiny web database. I'll show you the very top key. There I chose the wave, so it's updated it there straight away. Then if I say complete test on this device and I handed it to Tom, let's say, and then Tom had to guess, obviously we wouldn't be able to see what I chose in the real world. Okay, so then what would happen here is that Tom now updated the database once again with the second option. He obviously chose circle. So this was just learning how the phone interacted with this website, as I said. And lastly, would be to query the database for what both choices were. I'm going to hand over to Tom now to explain the technologies that we used and the technologies that we looked at.
I'm good for this. This is the first week, so I'm just going to have to describe the previous week where we were preparing how we had made the application and the technology we looked at during the first week. So this will be my longest speech. Let's, Josh, can you go to the screen? Cool. The technologies we looked at were Mid-App Inventor, TinyWebDB, mobile SMSing as a way of communication, also WhatsApp, Hangouts, Google Voice, and finally Kanban tool and easy backlog. I'll be going into these, but that's just a quick list of the stuff we looked at. So, Mid-App Inventor 2, it's a very useful tool for making the prototypes like we have here. It does this by removing lots of the complexity that's usually available in mobile app development and making what it does give always follow exactly what it's supposed to. This is very useful. It means you can rapidly make a simple tool like we have. On the other hand, it means you have to be careful because you can't add the complex, interesting stuff. But, you know, you make sacrifices for the basic tool. One of the main reasons we chose it is that it's very stable. It always follows, as I said, what it's supposed to. It's been beta tested by lots of different people over the years. And it's got tutorial videos on almost all of its functions, so we could always find out exactly how it implements various tools. Cool. TinyWebDB, Josh mentioned that we're using it to upload and download the choices that are made. It's essentially an online dictionary which says, I'm going to look up the game ID for the game we're playing. In this case, it was 47. And there it has the choices that each of us made, and I'll download the choices that are linked to the game ID I chose. And you could say, if I was a student, I'd store my student number as the key, and then as values it'd have my name, my age, how well I'm doing at university, all those things. It was very useful in that we could hide the background transfer that was going on, in that Josh couldn't actually see what I chose and I selected. It was entirely happening on the database and on the application. He couldn't see the messages that I was giving to him. Okay. Yeah, the problem was that it needed the key before this could actually happen. So in this case, it only happened on Josh's device. But if it was happening on 2 devices, I'd have to get the key before I could connect to the tiny WebDB where his choice is. SMSing is how we get the key across. So it's 47. He can SMS the message to me. It'll automatically load up onto the app, and we're sorted. The problem is it actually charges the mobile. The mobile network's charged for this service, and we didn't actually want this for our users, so we decided to skip out on the mobile SMSing. Next was WhatsApp, which allows for sending messages over the internet, not as directly charged, so good on that. The main problem is that you couldn't send messages directly to the application like you could with mobile SMSing. If I use mobile SMSing and I send directly to the application, it automatically load up the value 47. As opposed to WhatsApp, I have to go into WhatsApp, get the value 47, then go into the application itself, which is unfortunate, but is the best option we had. Next was Google Hangouts. The main reason this is here, even though it's not really supported by MidApp Inventor, is that part of Google Hangouts is Google Voice, which is supported by MidApp Inventor. Google Voice is Wi-Fi, so it works over the internet, which is great. It also works inter-app, which is great. The main problem is Google Voice only really works in America. Yeah, those mixed people, eh? Anyway, so technically you can work around this, but it requires a user to go through several hassles to get it to work. So we decided instead to just stick with WhatsApp because everyone has it, it's free to use, and it's easy to link to contacts on your phone and groups that you already know. As I said, and we chose to go with TinyWebDB and WhatsApp. The other technologies fell because they either charged, didn't work, or were unnecessarily complicated. Cool. Technology we didn't actually use in development, but during documentation was the Kanban tool. This is a really useful tool that allowed us to work with current tasks that we're working on. So current task would be implementing a login system. You could then say, okay, working on task, give a brief description of the task, put it in either, Kanban tool should be there, shouldn't it? Either put it in currently working, so we're working on the development step. So if I'm working on putting the login system, we'll go here. We can add, if you click on one, anyone. Cool, yeah. Click on it. We can add various comments to the task, or we can make a link to our Google Drive with various documents where we've added a proper system to it. And then it moved to done. The alternatives are, if you scroll to the bottom, there's supposed to be a research section there that just says things we're researching on as opposed to things we're developing, which was a nice thing to have, so we could just separate out our concerns like that. That's really useful. And at the end of every day, I'd get an email saying, well done, you've worked on X tasks, which was also pretty neat. And then Mitch already walked through the easy backlog, but it was a really nice task for controlling what we're putting into each sprint and seeing how well we're doing compared to what we planned. I'll now be handing back to Josh, who will be walking the challenges for the week.
Yeah, I'm going to do sprint 2, so we're going to just demonstrate the next sprint, so the next iteration of the application. It's very similar to the first one. The only difference is that now it would be between 2 separate phones, and that unique ID will be passed, not by one of the technologies that we use in our final iteration, but just by word of mouth. So it was it was our first thing to see how two devices handle communication with the tiny web database at the same time. So we just open the tiny web DB. Okay, and open this. Okay. So Tom and I, also Tom's going to connect his phone quickly, and then we're going to just show you how the game will work between two devices now using the tiny web DB. Okay, as you can see, the game ID is at 49 right now. So when we first initiate the game, what will happen is the phone will pull this and increment that by 1, just to make sure that each game is unique, so that multiple games can happen at the same time, and that all the data from the different games is stored. So once Tom's connected, okay. So as a sender, I would choose send. This would update that game ID to 50, and that game ID of 49 would be stored on my phone now locally. I'll then make my selection and display this screen where I could either complete the game on the device, like this print one, or ask Tom to join me by entering the game ID 49 into the cell phone. Okay, so Tom enters the unique game ID. Also, if I check the database, there's 49, there's my option that's been updated to the database. Now Tom using that same key. 49, yeah. It's a bit lagging. Okay, so Tom's making a selection. And then we'll see that the database will be updated with the same user tag. Then view results. Once again, just both phones are pulling with the database at the same time. So this is obviously one of the core technologies that we used in our final sprint, along with the normal local database on the cell phone to store local user IDs when logging in, and fusion tables, which we'll touch on in a little while. Now we're going to do the retrospective of week 2. So I'll take us through that.
Cool. The retrospective will essentially cover things that we learned during week 2 and important occurrences during week 2. The main thing was even a minor power outage just dropped 3 members from every group during the power outages, which was, considering it's lasted most of the day, pretty much everyone was gone by the end of that power outage, which was an interesting thing to see there. Secondly, this is the week where Wi-Fi issues started up. I don't know if other groups cover this, but something was happening with the wireless device in the labs, which was causing, when we were using MitApp Inventor 2 to load up to our devices and update the tiny WebDB, things were happening there. It would throw errors because of the connection problems. It would have all sorts of minor problems with that.
I just went to big screen.
And then one of the other minor things we discovered was because of some of the delay when using the device, you could press 2 buttons twice and throw off the tiny WebDB like you saw. It do stuff like store 2 choices and other interesting things. Some of the technologies, specifically during week 2, was Punya. This is a really interesting thing. It's supposed to be an upgrade on MitApp Inventor 2 by adding a cloud messaging service, which would have been really cool if we could get it. Unfortunately, it didn't really have much support, and it only came out earlier this year, so it's rather buggy and had minimal help documentation. We ended up skipping it out because we couldn't even get the tutorial system to work. So. The other thing we looked at was Twitter messaging. Twitter, you probably know, is a community-based messaging service. It's used all over the place, and normally you'd send a message to your Twitter group and everyone would get the message. However, it can be sent so that only you see the message. that would have worked really well, especially since it does supposedly have inter-device operability, and you could send messages privately between the apps. We didn't really get that far. We saw that you need to you'd have to log into Twitter to use it, and even then you'd have to know your target's Twitter name. And based on that, we decided to skip out on it compared to WhatsApp, where you just open WhatsApp and you can see all your contacts, all the people you've sent groups to, and you decide to go with WhatsApp instead. One of the major technologies during this week was a basic look into fusion tables. This was essentially saying we needed a better way to store long-term data, especially since we're going to sell this data to people who are interested in parapsychology. TinyWebDB isn't really good at that because you have to have the tag in order to retrieve the data. So you'd have to go through all the tags in order to get all the data. It was rather messy if we're going to try and implement it on a large scale. Instead, we decided to use fusion tables, which allows for querying of the database. It also allows us to say only these people are allowed to access it. So based on who's bought the data, they would be allowed to access the data. Only certain people are allowed to edit it. It had a whole bunch of advantages compared to using TinyWebDB, which would have lots of iffy data, maybe dropped games that are stored in there, and we could use fusion tables to store a proper chunk of the games. Cool. Lastly, TinyDB is very similar to TinyWebDB. It's just that it's stored persistently on the device instead of on the internet. We used this because we were going to implement a login system to uniquely identify each person who we're testing their telepathy score of. We needed a way to uniquely identify them. Instead of having it so that they had to log in each time they launched the app, we just stored their login details on the device, and then if they exited the app and came back in, it automatically log in as them. Cool. And yeah, as I said, we decided to use fusion tables and TinyDB as opposed to swapping to newer technologies, even though they had some points that are a bit more powerful. Cool. Some of the important challenges during this week was the discovery of the race conditions in the TinyDB. For example, if two people tried to do two things on the same tag, then it'd lose one of their messages, which was really unfortunate and meant we had to plan carefully around the TinyWebDB so that only one person was updating it at a time. And the meta-implementer had problems where if more than one person was working at a time, you'd lose blocks of back code. So we couldn't really speed up development by having multiple people work at the same time, unless it was one person working in the morning, one person working in the evening. You couldn't do two people working in the morning and expect things to work perfectly, which was unfortunate, but we worked around that. Cool. Now back to Josh, and we're going to show you, Kuda is going to do the final implementation of our app, and you'll see all the final features and login system.
Thank you, Tom. So you've heard most of the back-end stuff. So just presenting to you what actually went into making this app, which is why we decided to show you the first iteration and the MVP we came up with there. Then we show you the second iteration and the MVP we had there. But what exactly is it that we ended up actually finally producing? And thank you, Tom, for sharing with the floor the different technologies we used and the different technologies we explored. We did a lot of using a specific technology like Tom mentioned, and then you drop it because of certain advantages or disadvantages compared to other technologies. So, so the idea is that we'll have multiple players playing these games. So the moment we've got these two devices, as you can see. So we've got Tom on this device here, and we have Venia, who will be our customer for today, on that device. So we do want our application to be available on Google Play Store, and then our customers will download it, and it will appear with an icon on your phone. So in this case, Venia has downloaded the application, and I'll just request her to open the app. We also incorporated, you notice that we incorporated sound. So the idea of using sound was just because it's a game and we're trying to gamify it. And then we've got that creepy sound in the background that you can hear. Just try to get that telepathy feel into it. So we've got our app signed up. When it's the first time you have downloaded this app and opened it, you get this screen. So on this screen, Vinia being our new customer for today, would have to sign up as a new user. So click on sign up. You get that screen which she has to fill in her details. So Vinia will enter her username. Vinia will then be required to enter a password. And for validation purposes, you'd enter the exact same password twice. Vinia will then be requested to enter a date of birth. Then let's try register our app. See, Vinia now receives a message saying incomplete registration form. Please fill in all relevant fields. Try again. We notice that Vinia hadn't actually chosen a gender.
So choose your gender.
Yes, you do. We've got an option of 3. We've got male, female, or other. For those people that do not feel like they want to express which gender they are. So Vinia will now choose a gender. Okay, so at this point, Vinia has now entered in all her details. But we've got some validation in place. For example, both password thing. But let's talk the date of birth. For example, select a date of birth that's in the future. And then you try register. Vinia will then get that pop-up which says incomplete registration form. The date of birth field is invalid data. Please fix it before trying again. She'll try again. And then enter a valid date of birth. A valid date of birth is one that is older, at least older than 4 years of age. And then let's say Vinia entered an incorrect password combination. And then try to register. She'll get that error message, incorrect passwords. Passwords do not match. Re-enter passwords. She'll click re-enter passwords. And then she'll enter the correct password, which is exactly the same as the one she entered at first. And then at this point, as you can see, all of our information is now valid, and she can click register.
That's normal.
After tapping register, the next screen that pops up is our terms of use. This is just so that our customer knows exactly what they're getting themselves into. So we're not hiding anything from them. They can scroll through all the terms of use and read up on that.
Is it age restricted?
Yes, when you're registering, it won't let you register if you're younger than 4 years of age. Yes, so it's one of our validation routines. So if Vinia does not agree to our terms of use because we are looking at using this data for experiments and clicks on disagree, she'll get the message, sorry, you cannot play the game without agreeing with the terms of use. Then she'll click OK. So let's say Vinia agrees to our terms of use. She then comes to the home screen, which is the home screen that Tom also has, as he has already logged into the game. On this home screen, we've got various buttons, as you can see. You can initiate a game, which is hosting a game. You can join a contact after having been invited by an initiator. You can join a random game, and we've got a help button, and we've got a log out button. So in this case, let's say Tom is our host and initiates a game. Sorry, just having a technical difficulties with our emulator there. When Tom clicks on initiate game, this screen comes up. So you've got a choice of choosing your game type. In this case, because we haven't further developed the app, we only have one game type, which is the Xena cards that we're describing to you. In the future, however, which is why we are appealing for funding, is so that we can broaden this to any sort of message that you can send. Be it a voice note, then you try and guess who it was, be it a song, any other picture, anything that you could perhaps guess that it was sent to you by a specific person. So in this case, Tom chooses Xena cards as his game type.
Maybe just reconnect the emulator. So with the USB in.
But sometimes the emulator just takes a long time to get in sync with the software.
God, I can hear you still breathing.
Yeah? Yeah.
It's just because okay, I think we are back. So just a small recap, just in case you lost me there. Tom is the one that is hosting the game here, and Vinny will the one to join. So Tom chose Xenocard as the game type. Then he has an option of choosing the number of opponents. At the moment of the development time that we've added the features we've incorporated, we have a maximum of 4 opponents. In this case, we'll stick to just 1 opponent. And then Tom cannot invite a contact by tapping on invite contact. This button will pop up WhatsApp. As mentioned before, we've incorporated WhatsApp instead of all the other technologies. And Tom can now scroll through his contacts and find Vinia. Click on Vinia and share them, an invite with Vinia. On Vinia's phone, as you can see, a notification has popped up from Tom in the WhatsApp messages. Now that's the message that comes up for Vinia. It says, would you like to play the Sixth Sense game with me? Copy this entire message into the join game text in the Sixth Sense to join me. So Vinia, as instructed, will then highlight that whole message and copy it. And she will return to the game. And she will tap join contact. And then paste that entire message as instructed into the text box. Then she can click OK. Now there's the screen that comes up. Please wait while Sender chooses an image for you. So Tom is that screen because Vinia is now joining him. And Tom can try to telepathically send a message to Vinia. So Tom has selected an image, and then you get that screen to focus on the image, to try to harness his telepathic abilities to transfer this message to Vinia. So Vinia gets the screen. What shape was chosen? So now Vinia is trying to see how telepathic she is. And then you get that screen showing you the results. Chosen by sender, we have that star which Tom had chosen. Chosen by the receiver, Vinia has got the circle. And then at the bottom there, as you can see, we've got a summary of results there. We've gotten 0% of your choice is correct, which is lower than the chance of pure guess, which is basically showing us that Vinia is basically not telepathic at this stage. Just before we move on, one of the features that we do plan to incorporate with future development of this app is instead of it just saying, for example, chosen by receiver and chosen by sender, we actually wanted to be able to say chosen by Tom, chosen by Vinia, just so that it makes it more fun and more realistic. But Vinia can now, any one of the players, can now click on finish. And then the game ends. Okay, so now Tom will also click on finish, and as you notice they had that pop-up that came up that said a player has exited the game, which is basically telling Tom that Vinia exited. So as now that Vinia has logged in, she also just goes straight to the home screen, same thing with Tom. So let's say we get Vinia to initiate a game this time now. Clicks on initiate game, choose game type, she has Xena cards. We'll leave the number of opponents to 1, but this time I want to show you the other feature or game that we have. which is a random invite. So Vinaya can click on random invite. Basically, when she clicks on random invite, she's giving the invitation to anyone who's looking for a game at that point in time. So Tom can click on join random game. So basically, a game has been initiated in the cloud, and anyone at that point in time can just access it by clicking join random game. So Tom has that screen, please wait while the sender chooses an image for you. So Vinaya, again, will see if her telepathic abilities have improved, will choose a shape that she wants to send. Vinaya gets the chance to focus on the image, while Tom is getting that screen. What shape was chosen by Vinaya? Oh, okay. Chosen by sender, chosen by receiver. We've got the two choices that was made by the two players of the game. I'm not sure what error message just popped up there.
I can explain that error message. Basically, we modified the game a while ago so that we keep the score at the end of your profile in the TinyDB. Because I'm using one of the old profiles, it hasn't actually got the score at the end. For example, if I go, and it's now.
Just open it with Google Chrome. It was crashing. Yeah, open there and then just log in with your thing. Just go open your account.
Open my account.
Oh, wait, are you looking at the database?
Yes.
The database so that it's time to use.
Okay, so if you saw, I was logged in as Kudo. It's Kuda, here we go. It doesn't have the score at the end. However, Vinaya was logged in as, wherever her name is. And let's just use Rick as an example. And it has the number of games he's played and totally got it correct at the end, which I didn't have. However, if I made an account now, I'd have it all working.
So that's what we've developed at this point in time, and that's the game. But we still have one feature that I would like to show you, which is getting even more players involved in this game. Because at the end of the day, what we're trying to do is get as many participants as possible, so that when we do finally launch this onto the mobile platform, anyone at any place can access it. So we can have Michelle join as well. So Michelle already has her device, the game on her device. Unfortunately, you can't start up a third emulator, but she has the game on her device. So let's get Vinaya or Tom to initiate a game. So from initiating a game, Vinaya can now choose number of opponents and click on 2. Since there are now 3 players involved. And let's just start up a random game. So random invite from Vinaya. So now the game has been hosted in the cloud, and anyone looking for a game again can just access it. So the two opponents are accessing the game. Vinaya gets a chance to choose a shape to send. And then the opponents also get a chance to guess what shape was chosen. Now, as you can see, all 3 of our players have chosen, and it does show us 3 different choices that they guessed. Evidently, telepathy is not in existence between these three parties, as our total is still, you have got 0% of your choices correct. So we've got some calculations in there on the back end. So when you do get something correct, it will update that, and it will keep updating the score. And our developers have worked very hard to get all of this presented to you. but we are still looking forward to develop even greater and even bigger, just so that we can make it more extendable to different parties in the world. But yeah, so that's it for our app that I can present at the moment, and our players can finish or exit the app. I'll now leave the floor to Michelle, who will finish the presentation.
So one aspect of the game that Kuda did not look at is the help function. So if you have issues with playing the game, you can just click on help, which Vinny is going to do. And then it will take you to the website. And on this website, it has, if you go, we can start by looking at, if you click on the green button, then you can show you how to play 6 things, if you're having troubles with playing the game. So if Vinny clicks on how to play 6 things, it will show you how to play if it's the single player mode. It will also show you how to play if it's the multiplayer mode, as well as at the end it will show you how to win. It will give you an idea of how to win. And then if we scroll to the top again and we go back to the home page, the home page also has some background into what Sixth Sense is and what the system will do. And then if we scroll down, you can also see the contents that we have, which are the Xeno cards, and the game variations that we have, which is a single player game mode and the multiplayer game mode. And then if you scroll down to the bottom, it also has the download instructions, as well as has our Facebook and Twitter link. So for example, if Vinny clicks on the Facebook, it will redirect Vinny to our Facebook page. And then, as she mentioned earlier on, we're using this as for our advertising, so that we get more people to know about our game. And then the same thing also works with Twitter, and we also have the Twitter page. And then we're also using that so that people get to know more about our application. And then our website can also be accessed online. So Vinny is going to show you that. And then, so it's still the same tabs. It will start with the home one, which we went through, and then we went through how to play Sixth Sense as well. And then now Vinny will show you meet the team. And this has all of our team members in the group. And then we all had statements that we wrote about what we felt about the whole SysDev project. So for example, I'll go through Joshua's saying, and he was the team leader. The Honest System Development Project has been one of the highlights of 2015, and has taught me a great deal of things that I can apply to the real world. I'll just go through one more. I'll go through Vinya's saying, I feel more prepared for the working world after having taken part in systems development with Guardian Systems. Thank you to Mr. Ed Ray for his constant support. If you go back to the slides, that's all we have for you today. And thank you.
Thank you very much.